My parents refused to speak to me as punishment, so I made sure everyone would hear about it. My parents are the type of people who should have never had kids. When I was 7, I had a panic attack at the grocery store, and as I stood there hyperventilating, I ended up wetting myself in front of everyone. But instead of comforting me like normal parents would, my mom just stared at me with this cold expression and stopped talking. Not just for an hour or even a day. She didn't speak to me for an entire week. Meanwhile, my dad just went along with it like a coward. So by the time I was 10, I was basically this anxious wreck who pulled out chunks of my hair and bit my nails until they bled. But it was all for one simple reason. The silent treatment was their favorite punishment. Minor stuff got you days of silence, but major infractions meant weeks of being treated like you didn't exist. And it was during one of these punishments that I met Mr. Gary Jin. I was sitting on our front porch after school, like always, because being inside with parents who wouldn't acknowledge me was torture. This elderly Chinese man from next door started waving at me. I didn't wave back because I'd been conditioned not to communicate during punishments. But then he started using these hand gestures instead. First, it was just simple stuff like pointing at birds or making shapes with his hands. Then one day, he held up a sign that said, "Hello," in sign language, with the hand shape drawn below it. That's how it started. Every day after school, I'd sit on my porch and he'd teach me a new sign from his side of the fence. My parents actually seemed pleased that I was quietly entertaining myself, so they didn't stop me. Mr. Gary Jin told me his grandson was deaf and showed me photos of this kid who supposedly lived in another state. Looking back, I should have noticed how all the photos were old and faded, but I was just so desperate for any form of human interaction. After a few months, he gave me this journal to practice writing down what you learn. I filled pages and pages with my thoughts, finally having somewhere to express everything I couldn't say out loud. My parents had just started their longest punishment yet, 2 whole months of silence because I got a B on my report card. Mr. Gary Jin noticed I was getting worse, pulling out more hair, losing weight because I was too anxious to eat alone in that silent Kit Gary Jin. "You're mature enough now," he told me one day. "Come to my house for advanced lessons." His house smelled like mothballs and something sweet I couldn't identify. He showed me his grandson's old room, which was weird because everything looked way too fresh for a kid who hadn't lived there in years. The bed sheets were clean, toys arranged perfectly, even recent-looking schoolwork on the desk. But I was 10 and trusted him completely. He started giving me a key for emergencies when the silence at home got too bad. I'd sneak over and he'd have cookies and milk waiting, treating me like I was the most important person in the world. He'd ask me about my changing body, if I had any questions about growing up, stuff that made me uncomfortable but I thought was just awkward adult conversation. He'd tell me how lonely he was, how much I reminded him of his grandson, how I could be his special friend. The worst part was my parents caught me using sign language at dinner one night. I'd forgotten and signed "thank you" out of habit. They completely lost it and moved my mattress to the basement, basically putting me in isolation. That's when I really started depending on Mr. Gary Jin. I was at his house almost every day, and he was getting bolder with his questions and comments. Everything came to a head when my parents hit the 3-month mark of not speaking to me. I was having a full breakdown, hadn't heard my own name in so long I sometimes forgot what it was. I used the key and went to Mr. Gary Jin's house in the middle of the night. The grandson's room was different. My school photos were taped to the walls. Pages from my journal were photocopied and pinned up like some kind of shrine. There were photos of me he'd taken without me knowing, walking to school, sitting on the porch, even through my bedroom window. "You can be my grandson now," he said from the doorway, blocking my exit. "Your parents don't want you anyway." When I tried to leave, he grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. I managed to kick him and run home, but who was I going to tell? My parents, who wouldn't even look at me. The next morning, I woke up to my parents finally speaking to the police. They were reporting me as a runaway. Mr. Gary Jin was there too, telling them he was concerned about my mental health, showing them my journal entries as proof I was unstable. The officers believed the concerned elderly neighbor over the silent kid who couldn't even form words to defend herself. My parents agreed to send me to a behavioral facility Mr. Gary Jin had recommended. As they were making arrangements, I overheard the worst part. "Visiting hours are supervised by trained volunteers," the facility director said on speaker. "We actually just had someone apply. Mr. Gary Jin says he has experience with troubled children." Full story on channel linked below.